I was 7 months pregnant when my own family threw me out of my baby shower. At least, that's what I thought it was. The private dining room was decorated with pastel balloons, fresh flowers, and a 3-tier cake. I smiled as I walked in, one hand resting on my belly. Then my younger sister, Maya, stepped in front of me. She handed me a laminated itinerary. "I need you to leave." I laughed. Very funny. Nobody laughed back. 20 familiar faces stared at me in complete silence. My smile faded. What? What's going on? Maya took a slow breath. "This isn't your baby shower anymore." My heart stopped. "What are you talking about?" She glanced toward her mother-in-law, Evelyn, a wealthy woman who wore power as effortlessly as pearls. "The adoption was finalized yesterday," Maya said. "We changed the celebration." I blinked. "You changed? My baby shower?" "No," Evelyn corrected smoothly. "We corrected the guest list." Confused, I looked around the room. Every picture of me was gone. The welcome sign had been replaced. The cake no longer carried my baby's name. It was as if I'd never been invited. Then my cousin quietly handed me her phone. A group message, sent 3 days earlier. Everyone had received it. Everyone except me. My invitation had been canceled. The entire event had been reassigned to Maya, and every guest had agreed to keep it a secret until I arrived. I looked around the room. "You all knew?" No one answered. Not one person. Then my mother stood. For one hopeful second, I thought she was coming to defend me. Instead, she stood beside Maya. "You left a secure corporate job while pregnant," she said. "You've become financially reckless. I started a community childcare program. You abandoned stability. I followed my purpose." She shook her head. "Your pregnancy has become a distraction from this family's future." The words hit harder than a slap. Maya lowered her eyes. Evelyn folded her arms with quiet satisfaction. I suddenly understood. This wasn't just about a baby shower. They believed I was embarrassing the family. Maya's adoption and Evelyn's wealthy social circle offered them something far more valuable than me. Status. Money. Acceptance. I swallowed the lump in my throat and gently placed my hand over my daughter. I wouldn't let my child remember me breaking apart. Without saying another word, I turned toward the exit. Rain hammered against the restaurant windows. I reached for the door. Before I could touch the handle, both doors burst open. Cold wind rushed through the room. Standing in the doorway was my 82-year-old grandmother, Beatrice. Everyone had insisted she was too frail to travel. Yet there she stood, soaked by the rain, standing straighter than anyone else in the room. She wasn't carrying a cane. She was carrying a heavy, weathered metal lockbox. She looked past my mother, past Maya, past Evelyn. Her eyes settled only on me. Then she spoke 4 words that silenced the entire restaurant. "Nobody leaves. Not until the truth." Nobody moved. The only sound in the room was rain dripping from Grandma Beatrice's coat onto the polished floor. My mother was the first to recover. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Grandma Beatrice didn't answer. She walked straight past her, past Maya, past Evelyn. She stopped beside me and gently squeezed my hand. "Sit down, sweetheart." I hadn't realized how badly I needed someone to choose me until that moment. I slowly returned to the table. Grandma Beatrice lifted the heavy lockbox with surprising strength and dropped it onto the center of the table. The loud thud silenced every whisper in the room. Evelyn frowned. "I don't know what this performance is supposed to accomplish." Grandma Beatrice finally looked at her. "This isn't for you." Then she looked around the room. "I've spent 82 years learning one thing. You never truly know people until they believe someone has nothing left to offer. No one spoke. She turned to Maya. How many times have you visited me this year? Maya looked away. Grandma already knew the answer. Twice. She looked at my mother. And you? Silence. Then she turned toward me. For 5 years, Emily drove 3 hours every weekend. She took me to doctor's appointments. She fixed broken fences. She organized my medicines. She filed my property taxes. When my roof leaked, she climbed into the attic with contractors. When I couldn't remember which papers needed signing, she stayed until midnight helping me. Tears filled my eyes. I had never done those things expecting anyone to notice. Grandma smiled softly, but she never once posted a picture about it. The room grew uncomfortably quiet. My mother crossed her arms. Nobody asked her to do those things. No, Grandma replied calmly. That's what makes love different from obligation. Uncle Marcus lowered his head. He had seen every weekend. He knew she was telling the truth. Then Grandma reached into her coat pocket. I almost didn't come today. Everyone looked at her. Until I received this. She pulled out her phone. On the screen was the same group message I'd just seen. The one canceling my baby shower. The one everyone thought I'd never find out about. My mother frowned. You weren't supposed to. Receive it? Grandma interrupted. No, I wasn't. She slowly scanned the room. You accidentally included me. A few gasps broke the silence. I read every word. I watched all of you congratulate yourselves. I watched grown adults agree to humiliate a pregnant woman simply because she no longer fit the image you wanted. Nobody could look at her. Even Evelyn shifted uncomfortably. She tried to recover. With all due respect, this is a private family matter. Grandma smiled. It became my business the moment kindness left this room. Evelyn's voice hardened. If this continues, Maya's family may lose opportunities that cannot be replaced. Grandma chuckled. You still think money is the most valuable thing sitting at this table. Slowly, she reached into her pocket again. This time she pulled out an old iron key, worn smooth by decades of use. She held it above the lockbox. I've waited a very long time for this day. Then she looked directly at me. Your grandfather told me this key should only be used when the right person finally stood alone. She rested the key against the lock. I believe. That day has finally come. Before Grandma Beatrice could turn the key, Maya lunged across the table. Stop. Her voice cracked. Tears streamed down her face. You've always loved Emily more. Grandma didn't flinch. No, child. I loved you differently. Maya shook her head. You never understand. I've spent my whole life trying to be enough. She looked at Evelyn, then at our mother. I finally had one chance to build the family I've dreamed about. One chance to belong. Her shoulders collapsed. I couldn't lose it. For the first time that afternoon, I didn't see my sister as my enemy. I saw a frightened woman who had spent years chasing approval from people who would never truly give it. Our mother stepped forward. Mom, give me that key. Grandma slipped it back into her hand. No, you're confused. No, you don't know what you're doing. I know exactly what I'm doing. My mother's voice rose. You're letting your emotions destroy this family. Grandma met her eyes. No, you already did that. The room fell silent. I opened my mouth to speak, but a sharp pain tightened across my stomach. I froze. Another wave followed. I grabbed the edge of the table and inhaled sharply. Uncle Marcus rushed toward me. Emily? I nodded, unable to answer. Another contraction squeezed harder. Fear flashed across Maya's face. Is the baby coming? I don't think so. I struggled to breathe. The room erupted into panic. Someone shouted for water. Someone else suggested calling an ambulance. But my mother didn't move. She looked at Evelyn, almost asking permission. Before either of them reacted, another voice cut through the chaos. Everyone move. Miss Clara, the older waitress I'd met only minutes before the party. Earlier that afternoon, I'd found her apologizing after accidentally dropping a tray. The manager had embarrassed her in front of customers. I'd helped pick everything up, thanked her for taking such good care of everyone, and slipped an extra tip into her hand before she could refuse. Now she stepped between me and the crowd. She placed one steady hand on my shoulder. Slow breaths, sweetheart. She handed me a cold towel. You're safe. Uncle Marcus brought water. Grandma Beatrice knelt beside my chair. The room suddenly felt smaller, quieter. Miss Clara looked directly at my mother. You ought to be ashamed. Nobody answered. I watched your daughter treat a complete stranger with more kindness today than this family has shown her in the last hour. She turned toward Evelyn. You can buy fancy parties. You can buy expensive clothes. But you can't buy character. Evelyn opened her mouth. Miss Clara didn't let her speak. That young woman thanked every employee in this restaurant. She helped clean a mess she didn't make. She asked me how my day was. And now all of you are acting like she's the problem. Silence swallowed the room. My breathing slowly became steady again. The tightness eased. Uncle Marcus smiled with relief. They're slowing down. Grandma gently squeezed my hand. Better? I nodded. Much. Miss Clara smiled. Good. Now finish what you came here to finish. Grandma Beatrice stood. She picked up the old iron key once more. Every eye followed her hand. She looked at me. Are you ready? I wiped the last tears from my face. For the first time since walking into the restaurant. I wasn't afraid. I nodded. Open it. Grandma slid the iron key into the ancient lock. A loud metallic click echoed through the silent dining room. Then, slowly, she lifted the lid. The lid creaked open. Every person at the table leaned forward. Evelyn's eyes widened, clearly expecting jewelry, cash, or something that could be measured in dollars. Instead, Grandma Beatrice carefully lifted out a thick bundle of aged documents tied together with faded blue ribbon. Yellowed property deeds, old land surveys, tax records, trust agreements, and a leather folder bearing my late grandfather's signature. Evelyn frowned. Paper? Grandma smiled. Paper changes lives. She untied the ribbon and handed the first document to Uncle Marcus. Read the address. His eyes moved across the page. His face lost all color. That can't be right. Read it, Grandma said. He swallowed. The property at Westbrook Medical Plaza. The room went still. I recognized the name immediately. It was one of the busiest commercial properties in the city. Evelyn's family's medical corporation had operated its flagship offices there for decades. Evelyn laughed nervously. I'm afraid you've made a mistake. Grandma calmly slid another document across the table. No mistake. The land has never belonged to your company. It has belonged to our family trust for over 40 years. Evelyn grabbed the papers. She flipped through them faster and faster. The confidence slowly disappeared from her face. This. She looked again. Dot is impossible. It isn't, Grandma replied. Your company owns the buildings. Our family owns the land beneath them. A heavy silence settled over the room. Grandma turned toward me. Your grandfather created this trust long before he passed away. He believed wealth should never go to the loudest voice. It should go to the person who quietly carried responsibility. She looked around the table. For years, I documented everything. Who visited? Who helped? Who disappeared? Who served without expecting applause? Then she reached into the folder and removed one final document. This is my formal appointment. She placed it gently in front of me. The trust gave me the authority to choose the next managing trustee. I made that decision months ago. I stared at my own name. My hands began to shake. I don't understand. Grandma smiled. You kept this family together when no one was watching. You managed the records. You helped with the legal filings. You made sure every tax payment was submitted. You protected what your grandfather built. She rested her hand over mine. You earned this. I looked down again. Every signature had already been notarized. Everything had been completed. Nothing happening in that room could change it. Then Grandma spoke the words that changed everything. The building you wanted for your community child care center. She paused. Dot already belongs to the trust. I looked up in disbelief. The lease was never yours to chase. It was yours to manage. The room fell silent again. Then Uncle Marcus quietly added, and Evelyn's corporation is due for lease renewal in 3 months. Every eye turned toward Evelyn. She looked as though the floor had disappeared beneath her. Slowly, very slowly, she looked at me, not with superiority, not with pity, but with fear. My mother covered her mouth. Maya stared at me through tears. Only then did they understand. An hour earlier, they had publicly thrown me out of my own baby shower. Now they were standing before the woman entrusted with protecting the very foundation of their future. No one spoke. They didn't have to. The room had already said everything. No one spoke. The silence felt heavier than every word that had been said all afternoon. Evelyn was the first to move. She slowly pulled out a chair. Emily, please, sit down. Her voice had completely changed. I'm afraid we've all allowed emotions to get in the way. I looked at the empty chair, then back at her. No. She forced a smile. I'm sure we can work through this together. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I gently shook my head. There wasn't a misunderstanding. There was a choice. Her smile disappeared. Across the table, Maya began to cry. Not the dramatic tears she'd shed earlier. These were quiet, heavy. I was so desperate to become a mother, she whispered. I let people convince me that being accepted mattered more than doing what was right. She covered her face. I'm so sorry. I walked over to her. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I wrapped my arms around my little sister. She broke down completely. I'm sorry, she repeated. I'm so sorry. I held her until she stopped shaking. When we stepped apart, I looked at everyone in the room. My grandfather didn't build this legacy so one part of the family could destroy another. I turned toward Evelyn. The lease stays. She blinked. It does? Yes. Relief washed over her face. But it changes. I looked around the room. From today forward, a permanent percentage of every lease payment from this property will fund free community childcare and adoption assistance for families who could never afford either. Miss Clara smiled. Uncle Marcus quietly wiped away a tear. Grandma Beatrice simply nodded. As your grandfather hoped you would, she whispered. I carefully placed every document back inside the lockbox. Then I closed the lid. The sound echoed softly through the room. I turned to my mother. She looked smaller than I had ever seen her. I forgive you. Tears filled her eyes. But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. I took a slow breath. You no longer get to decide my worth. You no longer get to speak into my peace. If we're ever going to rebuild our relationship, it will happen with honesty, respect, and healthy boundaries." She nodded silently. There was nothing left to argue. Grandma Beatrice slipped the key back into her pocket. Uncle Marcus picked up the lockbox. Miss Clara opened the restaurant door. The four of us walked outside together. Behind us, no one tried to stop us. A few weeks later, I sat in the nursery of my new child care center, the same building I had once believed I'd never be able to afford. Morning sunlight poured through the windows. Children's books lined freshly painted shelves. In the corner sat the old metal lockbox, safely tucked away on a high cabinet. It was no longer a symbol of wealth. It was a reminder that the greatest inheritance is character. Grandma Beatrice sat beside me, resting one gentle hand on my belly. Right on cue, my daughter kicked. Grandma laughed softly. "I think she already knows she's surrounded by love." I smiled. For the first time in a long time, I believed it too. That day, I lost the approval I had spent years chasing. But I gained something far greater: peace. And sometimes, peace is the richest inheritance anyone could ever receive. If you've ever had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting your worth, what choice did you make? I'd love to hear your story in the comments.